on board, a lot of people don't realise, but actually animals as well. There was dogs, and this is actually Bamsey, who was on a Norwegian ship with his dad, who was the captain. Much loved. He was in Montrose. In fact, there is a beautiful statue of him in Montrose facing Norway, and there's another statue in Norway facing Scotland. Very much loved when he passed away. Hundreds of people actually attended his funeral in Montrose, where he still is. And also on the ships were cats. Cats were everywhere on the ships. They were excellent at keeping the rats away, and they were very much loved by the men as well. It was like having a dog for them. When Dad hit the cat used to actually sit on his hammock. And this is Unsinkable Sam, who's actually a German cat, originally named Oscar. He actually survived 3 sinkings and eventually lived his life in Ireland. There's Pollyanna. Who'd have thought they would have a reindeer on a submarine? But little Pollyanna was. And Olga, the Christmas reindeer, was taken onto ships like HMS Norfolk for Christmas time to cheer up the men. Winky, the carrier pigeon, amazing little girl who flew and actually saved an air crew who had ended up in the water and realised they had a carrier pigeon, let her go. She arrived in Broughty Ferry. RAF Lookers got, airplane out and actually saved the lives of the men. And she got her own medal. So with all of that going on, the guys just had to get on with it. It's actually Jimmy Baines who's now going to tell you a bit about his life on the Convoys.
I got a draft jet to a colony class frigate called Anguilla, and she was berthed up in Liverpool. So bag and hammock on the train, Lime Street, into Gladstone Dock. Anguilla was what they call a colony class frigate, named after colonies obviously. Bit bigger than Erica, still a small ship, but more comfortable, a little more room. Quite good it was, and better armed. We were part of what was known as the 19th Escort Group, which consisted of 6 frigates. There were Anguilla and Antigua, and 2 captain class American ones, Goodall and Cotton, and 2 named after Scottish locks, Loch Inch and Loch Shin. And the 6th was quite a formidable force, used for special jobs, going out doing convoy work and that sort of thing. Then came the day, of course, where we discovered that we were off on an Arctic run. And, I don't have to tell you about that, you know that, don't you, what goes on? Very, very cold, of course. And we went up to Scotland, and it was a big convoy, cruisers, aircraft carriers, destroyers, and we were this special task force. We were going to sail several hours ahead of that convoy to clear the way, while they came on behind. So off we went, and we didn't have any trouble, really, a few skirmishes here and there. And once you went north of Bear Island, into the Arctic Circle, it was permanent twilight. No dawn, no dusk. You didn't even know what time of the day it was. It was exactly like that all the time. And we eventually into the Barents Sea and then into the Kola Inlet, where we anchored. And a few hours later, in came the convoy, having lost 2 ships, which was quite a good achievement. They went down river to Murmansk to unload and get a new cargo to take home. Meanwhile, we were left to our own devices. Now, at that point, quite truthfully, was born my first love, if you like, of the Russian people. They'd been through the mill, and we'd all suffered during the war, but at least they'd been invaded, and their country was taken to pieces, absolutely desecrated, and their casualty figures were millions, civilian and military. And I felt, truthfully, quite proud to be part of that scene, to stand there. It was desolate, nothing there, but I knew where I was had actually been part of this dreadful invasion by the Germans. Anyway, Goodall had invited us to play a game of football. So our boys picked up a football team. We went ashore and they played against each other football on the frozen ground. Quite something. We met a few of the locals who were quite friendly, but the whole place was so desolate. And again, Looking at Russia, I was so impressed with the place. Came the time to go home, and believe you me, in my opinion, this is where it's the most dangerous. Always has been, because you can rest assured you're going to lose one of you when you leave, because you're in the Kola Inlet, and outside there's a U-boat pack waiting for you, and they can see you, and you can't see them. You know they're there, and they know you're coming out. And well, we had a little session on the jetty with the padre who wished us well, so we keep our eyes open, and off we went. The Commodore said the convoy is now forming up outside and clear the way. Well, out we went, we had to zigzag all over the place, and immediately we left to go to it. It was mayhem. We got a direct contact, which we knew was a sub, and we looked round and Goodall was flashing like mad, and in contact. Before she could say any more, she disappeared in a gigantic ball of flame. Blowtorch, the whole lot went up. Oh, terrible sight. But we pressed on, along with Lockinch, and we fired these depth charges. And believe it or not, I could not take it in. Up came this U-boat, U-281. Green it was. And of course, I'm not sure of distances, but believe it was quite close. No more than 100 yards away, I'd say. Well, our gunners were right on the spot. They couldn't miss. Rapid firing, they knocked lumps out of the submarine. She stood no chance. A very brave German sailor jumped out of the conning tower and ran along the casing to get to the gun, but he stood no chance. She suddenly tipped up, rolled over, and went down, taking with her 55 German sailors. I mean, our guns crew cheered like we won the World Cup. They were delighted with their performance. I must confess, feel a slight pang of sympathy when 55 men in an iron coffin are now going to sink below gallons and gallons of icy water, and they ain't going to come back. To me, I thought, must be dreadful. But there you go. It was them or us. I'm glad it wasn't us. And off, that was it. And another ship sunk, another one picked up 15. And then the U-boats got away, and we were left. And the Commodore said that the convoy is now coming out. And he said, Goodall, which actually, although it was torpedoed, didn't sink. She was a floating, burned out wreck. And looking at her, you could see the mess. She'd hit below the bridge, and the bridge had tipped upwards and backwards over the funnel. What they must have suffered, those blokes. Terrible. But she was just a smouldering wreck, as I was saying. And the Commodore said she was a hazard to the convoy. In the way, sink her. And we didn't feel very happy about that, but obviously she was a menace. So we fired a few shots, towed the water line. As I mentioned earlier, now you see her, now you don't. She gently disappeared, and that was it. So we then made our way back, finally getting back to the swept channel, up the Mersey, Gladstone Dock, Liverpool, tied up, switched off the engines, and only then relaxed. I thought, didn't think much of that at all. It was frightening, terrifying, and we weren't looking forward to the next one. But as it happened, we needn't have worried, because next day was May the 8th, 1945, which meant that the war in Europe was over. And I mean, the whole place went wild, everywhere went wild, but Liverpool particularly, because they had suffered. Plus the fact that around the dock area, ships had left there and not come back. And everybody was happily going berserk. We were delighted, of course, I was, especially to think you'd been in a war and you survived. I felt terrible the fact that my mates in the same age as me, like 22, a fortnight earlier, fate decreed they hadn't. I never got used to that at all. But we found it difficult to laugh and rejoice when a fortnight earlier we'd been killing one another, and now it didn't matter.
By the end of the war, The guys got demobbed and war ended in 6th of May 1945. To Europe. Over 3,000 men gave their lives on the Arctic convoys, and most of their bodies have never ever or never will be recovered. Now, our Russian Arctic Convoys Club, we've got lots of veterans who are still alive. Obviously, we keep losing veterans every year. We're based in Dundee, where there is an international submarine, memorial submarines left here to go out into the Atlantic. And we produce newsletters. We've made them available on Amazon because, well, I won't always be here, so we want to make sure that lots of little stories coming in from lots of different places, which is quite nice.